guys, welcome back to Read Aloud. We are reading Peter Pan by Barrie. We're almost to the end. Now, Captain Hook and the pirates have taken off with the Lost Boys and Wendy and John and Michael, and Peter has gone to search for them. Tinkerbell's been saved by all the children who clapped their hands because they believed in fairies, and so now Peter is on the hunt. Chapter 14, The Pirate Ship. One green light squinting over Kidd's Creek, which is near the mouth of the Pirate River, marked where the brig, the Jolly Roger, lay. That's the pirate ship. Low in the water, a rakish-looking craft foul to the hull, every beam in her detestable like ground strewn with mangled feathers. She was the cannibal of the seas, and scarce needed that watchful eye, for she floated immune in the horror of her name. I mean, everybody was just afraid of the pirate ship because of who was on it. She was wrapped in the blanket of the night, through which no sound from her could have reached the shore. There was little sound, and none agreeable, save the whir of the ship's sewing machine, at which Smee sat, ever industrious and obliging, the essence of the commonplace, pathetic Smee. I know not why he was so infinitely pathetic, unless it were that because he was so pathetically unaware of it. But even strong men had to turn hastily from looking at him, and more than once on a summer evenings he touched the fount of Hook's tears and made it flow. Of this, as of almost everything else, Smee was quite unconscious. So people kind of felt sorry, like he was kind of strange, they thought, and that he didn't even see that he was. It made people feel sorry for him. It's not very nice way to be treated. A few of the pirates leant over the bulwarks, drinking in the miasma of the night. Others sprawled by barrels over games of dice and cards. And the exhausted four who had carried the little house lay prone on the deck, where even in their sleep they rolled skillfully to this side or that out of Hook's reach, lest he claw them mechanically in passing. Hook trod the deck in thought. O man unfathomable! It was his hour of triumph. Peter had been removed forever from his path, and all the other boys were on the brig about to walk the plank. It was his grimmest deed since the days when he'd brought barbecue to heel. And knowing as we do how vain a tabernacle is man, could we be surprised had he now paced the deck unsteadily, bellied out by the winds of his success? But so if he were all prissy, walking down, strutting, we would understand the author saying. But there's no elation in his gait, which kept pace with the action of his somber mind. Hook was profoundly dejected. He was often thus when communing with himself on board ship in the quietude of the night. It was because he was so terribly alone. This inscrutable man never felt more alone than when surrounded by his dogs. They were so socially inferior to him. Hook was not his true name. To reveal who he really was would even at this date set the country ablaze. But, as those who read between the lines may have already guessed, he had been famous at public school, and its traditions still clung to him like garments, with which, indeed, they are largely concerned. So, he came from a very aristocratic, a very fancy, wealthy family in England, and had gone to private school, which is called public school there, and he had people wouldn't think he would become a pirate. You know, he was supposed to be something fancier than that. Thus it was offensive to him, even now, to board a ship in the same dress in which he grappled her. So he felt like he should change, but is what he has. And he still adhered in his walk to the school's distinguished slouch. But above all, he retained the passion for good form. I mean, like following the rules and manners and following the art of things he should do, the way he should do things. Now, did he do that when he bit Peter earlier? Good form. However much he may have degenerated, he still knew that this is all that really matters. Far from within him, he heard a creaking as of rustle portals, and through them came a stern tap, 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 like hammering in the night when one cannot sleep. Have you been in good form today? Was their eternal question. Fame, fame, that glittering bauble, it is mine, he cried. Is it quite good form to be distinguished at anything? Said the tap, tap, tap from his school. I am the only man whom Barbecue feared, he urged, and Flint himself feared Barbecue. Barbecue? Flint? What house? Came the cutting retort. Most disquieting reflection of all. Was it not bad form to think about good form? So does it mean that you're not a good person of good character doing what you're supposed to do if you have to think about doing what you're supposed to do? And that he wants to brag about getting another pirate, but they're like, well, is that what you're supposed to be doing in the first place? Is that something to be proud of? His vitals were tortured by this problem. It was a claw within him, sharper than the iron one, and as it tore him, the perspiration dripped down his tallow countenance and streaked his doublet. Ofttimes he drew his sleeve across his face, but there was no damming that trickle. Ah, envy not, Hook. There came to him a presentiment of early dissolution. It was as if Peter's terrible oath had boarded the ship. Hook felt a gloomy desire to make his dying speech, lest presently there should be no better time for it. "Better for Hook," he cried, "if he had had less ambition." It was in his darkest hours only that he referred to himself in the third person. "No little children love me." Strange that he should think of this, which had never troubled him before. Perhaps the sewing machine brought it to his mind. For long he muttered to himself, staring at Smee, who was humming placidly, under the conviction that all children feared him. Feared him? Feared Smee? There was not a child on board that brig that night who did not already love him. He had said horrid things to them and hit them with the palm of his hand because he could not hit with his fist, but they'd only clung to him the more. Michael had tried on his spectacles to tell poor Smee that they thought him lovable. Hook itched to do it, but it seemed too brutal. Instead, he revolved this mystery in his mind. Why do they find Smee so lovable? He pursued the problem like the sleuth hound that he was. If Smee was lovable, what was it that made him so? A terrible answer suddenly presented itself. Good form? Had the bosun good form without knowing it, which is the best form of all? He remembered that you have to prove you don't know you have it before you're eligible for pop. With a cry of rage, he raised his iron hand over Smee's head, but he did not tear. What arrested him was this reflection. To claw a man because he is in good form, what would that be? Bad form! The unhappy Hook was as impotent as he was damp, and he fell forward like a cut flower. His dogs thinking him out of the way for a time, discipline instantly relaxed, and they broke into a bacchanalial dance, which brought him to his feet at once, all traces of human weakness gone, as if a bucket of water had passed over him. "Quiet, you skogs!" he cried, "or I'll cast anchor in you." And at once the din was hushed. "Are all the children chained, so that they cannot fly away?" "Aye, aye." "Then hoist them up." The wretched prisoners were dragged from the hold, all except Windy, and ranged in a line in front of him. For a time he seemed unconscious of their presence. He lolled at his ease, humming not unmelodiously snatches of a rude song, and fingering a pack of cards. Ever and anon the light from his cigar gave a touch of color to his face.